Welcome back to another Kray video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any videos. And for people really into the Krays, join our private Facebook group, Krays Crime Lords of London, where you will find stuff probably unavailable anywhere else. We're an established group with a large membership, and best of all, we're friendly. The link is in the YouTube description section.
Hello, my name is Tony Lambrianou, and I ran with the Kray gang back in the 1960s. I wasn't in the firm itself. I was more like an associate member, along with my brother Chris. But I did get to know the twins well, and I saw a lot of what went on firsthand. I'll only ever tell this story once, and when it's done, I'm going to walk away from it for the rest of my life. I don't want to dwell in the past anymore, but to be free of it, I must confess it. I once made a promise to a remarkable woman, my probation officer, Mrs. Jean Heath, that I would someday tell of my experiences as a professional criminal and as an associate member of the notorious Kray firm. Mrs. Heath has since died, and I owe it to her, my loved ones, and myself to offer this true account of a career which grew out of violence, flourished on fear, and culminated in murder, and ended in prison. So much has been said and written about the Kray gang that we have now become the stuff of legend. But at the heart of that legend are real live people, and if I hope to achieve anything, it's to present them through the facts and not the fantasy of the way we lived. For years, I've been hearing what everybody else has to say about us in courtrooms, books and newspapers, and the twins have taken the chance to reply in print. I intend to set the record straight for all of us that stood together in the dock and went to prison for our crimes. I hadn't realized there was any bad feeling between Eric Mason and the twins, up until now. Apparently, Eric had been running around sticking their name up, using it in front of a lot of people in the West End for his own advancement. The twins weren't too pleased about it, and were even less impressed with Eric after a dramatic turn of events in another West End night spot. Maurice King, in addition to his partnership with Eric and Kenny in the Brown Derby, owned a club called the Starlight in Oxford Street. He was also legitimately involved in the early careers of many of the 60s pop singers and groups, including P.J. Proby, the Walker Brothers, Shirley Bassey, the Rocking Berries, and Jackie Trent. Jackie, who went on to make a fortune with her husband Tony Hatch as his songwriting partner, composing the Neighbours theme tune, among other credits, started her rise to fame as a barmaid in the Starlight. Her first husband, Drew Harvey, was very friendly with Maurice. At this time, the Brown Derby was like a Kray club, but the Richardsons had started getting into the Starlight. Everyone was aware that trouble was brewing, particularly between the Krays and the Richardsons, over the balance of power in the West End, especially with regard to protection in the clubs and businesses. The area was divided up among 3 or 4 firms, with the twins taking the lion's share. But the Richardsons were expanding fast, and people were treading on each other's toes. One particular night, Eric was in the Starlight with Davy Clare, a man named Boot, and Maurice King, who was behind the bar. Frankie Fraser, a notorious villain from South London, turned up for a drink with some of the Richardson firm, and an argument broke out between the two groups. It all stemmed from an old Dartmoor saw. Eric had apparently taken the side of a Scottish firm against the Londoners in the prison, which caused a lot of bad feeling and was surprising, since Eric was a South Londoner himself. The argument in the Starlight suddenly went off, and Eric wound up getting the treatment. He was dragged out of the club and badly done with pitchforks and shovels, after which he was thrown out of a car outside a hospital in North London. The police called it a gangland warning. No one was quite sure whether the Richardsons were behind it or not. Assumptions caused trouble, but feelings were running high, and Chris and I were ready to make one with him, to take his side against Frank and the Richardsons. Eric, for some reason, didn't want to know. At this time, we were very active, the nucleus of our little lot being Davy Clare, another villain called Peter Metcalf, and Chris and myself. Peter, Chris and I went to visit Eric in hospital. He was all patched up on his hands, his legs and his feet, and his head had been slashed. He'd been cut up quite a bit, in fact. We told him we wanted to do something about it, but he seemed very reluctant. When he came out of hospital, the twins called him round to their house in Valence Road and asked him what he thought should be done. Again, he said, nothing. I think Reggie and Ronnie were putting pressure on him because they were looking for a ruck with the other firm. For the twins, it was a clear case of, they've had a go at one of ours. And Eric's attitude left a bad taste. Ronnie and Reggie lost a lot of respect for him that day. Chris and I had already seen at first hand what certain members of the Richardsons were capable of doing, notably George Cornell, who was later shot dead by Ronnie Kray in the Blind Beggar pub. Earlier, during this period with Eric, we'd heard of a long firm which was being operated in a block of offices in Great Portland Street. A long firm is an outwardly respectable company which will build up good contacts with its suppliers and then suddenly vanish with the stock and the takings, leaving only unpaid bills. We were introduced to the two fellas who were running this long firm, Manchester boys, called Bill and Derek. The Richardsons were running an operation on the floor below. George Cornell was working out of there with a man called Don Giles. They had approached Bill and Derek about hiring some cars out through their long firm. The two Manchester lads phoned a contract hire firm and arranged to have 4 cars delivered to the offices, while the invoice would be sent on. The cars were duly sent round, but 2 were illegally parked, and the council impounded them without anyone knowing it. When Cornell and Giles went out and found the 2 cars missing, they thought Bill and Derek had had them over. We went round to the offices, Chris, Eric Mason and I, only to discover that Cornell and Giles had got these 2 tied up. Cornell had a golf club and about 20 balls, and he was lobbing golf balls into one boy's mouth while Giles held his head. The lad had lost nearly all of his teeth. The other fellow was on the floor with bits of paper stapled to his body. It was a nasty little business. As we went in, Chris said, "What the fucking hell's going on here? It's a liberty." He then decided, "We'll make a few phone calls here." We rang to find out if the cars had been put in the police pound, and the police said, "Try the council compound." The council confirmed they had the cars, and for a fee, would release them. Meanwhile, Bill and Derek were trussed up like chickens, black and blue, which made Cornell and Giles look a bit stupid. He was a stocky character, Cornell, and an arrogant man. His main pal was a bloke called Roy Hall, nicknamed Little Legs. I met Roy in Hull prison in later years. while I was away with him and the rest of the Richardsons. None of the outside troubles between us were mentioned, and no old wounds were brought up. Charlie Richardson, in fact, did most of his sentence with Chris and me, but that was well into the future. For the present, my brother and I were looking at a new career as mobile criminals, the first of our kind in the country. And the key to it all was Eric Mason, who moved away to Blackpool after his fallout with the twins. It was late summer 1964, and with my prison sentence well behind me, I travelled to Liverpool with Chris and his wife for her sister's wedding. I wasn't really all that keen on going to the wedding, but I was hoping that we could combine it with a trip to see Eric Mason, who was living in that part of the world. He'd told Chris that he had it all his own way up there, and that there was a lot of opportunity. As it happened, we did pay a visit to Eric, but it was more than a social call. It lasted for 6 months, and it came about as a direct result of Chris bashing up all the in-laws at the wedding and turning the celebrations into a shambles. All of the bride's family were football mad and fanatical Liverpool supporters. Chris was a Spurs man. Liverpool were playing at home on the afternoon of the wedding, and her relations all left the reception, which was held in a drinking club, and went to the football. The reception was still going on when they came back, and they were all ready for a drink up. Chris had a fallout with her father and her brothers over Spurs and Liverpool, and next thing, everything was going up in the air. We went back to the caravan site where the immediate family were to stay. Chris, his wife Carol, her brother and I were all expected to stay in this one caravan, which was the size of a cloakroom. Chris said, "I'm not staying in that." And we went into Liverpool to try and find a hotel, but with no luck. It was then about 8 o'clock at night. We came back to the site, and Chris towed the caravan into a lake. The police were called, and we disappeared. We rang up Eric Mason, who said, "Come over right away." Eric was living in Lytham St Anne's, just outside Blackpool, in a road where singing and variety stars used to rent houses while they were doing the summer season in the seaside theatres. He was staying with the Clark brothers, who were tap dancers appearing at the Queen's Theatre. We arrived at the house to find that our neighbours were Dave Clark, Freddie and the Dreamers, the Bachelors, and Stan Stanwyck, who went on to appear in Coronation Street. Peter Metcalf flew up from London to join us, a bloke who had to do things in style. He was always immaculately dressed. At about 5'10", he was a tubby fella, clean-shaven with neatly trimmed mousy hair and Italian-type features. Peter was into karate. The other member of our team, Davy Clare, was in Manchester on the run from the twins. There was a rumour going around at the time that he had been asked to take some action in London against George Cornell, who was becoming increasingly troublesome, but hadn't done so. It was also said that before he went into hiding, Davy Clare went to see his bank manager, handed him a letter, and said, "If anything happens to me, you're to give this to Scotland Yard." Chris and I later found Davy in Manchester accidentally when we bumped into his girl in a casino one night. We went round to where he was living. He must have seen us coming because he had his head in a gas oven, and he was saying, "I know it's all over. You've come to get me." Chris said, "Don't be stupid. Get up. If I was you, I'd go and see the twins and straighten it up with them." But at the time we arrived in Blackpool, we had no idea where Davy Clare had gone, and we were anticipating nothing more than a couple of nights out with Eric Mason. He was a stocky chap, Eric, with fair hair cut in a similar style to Reggie Krays. He was known as a hard man. He had a great knowledge of boxing, and he knew everyone who was worth knowing in our circles. But what he wanted more than anything in his life was stardom. He introduced Peter, Chris and me to the Clark brothers and invited us to see their show the next night. We went on from there to a nightclub called the Embassy, where we were given the best table. Sitting with us were the Clark brothers, the Bachelors, a singer called Twinkle, and Bill Heaney, the owner of the club. They gave us the full treatment and even put the spotlight on us. It hadn't taken long to get around that we were East End gangsters up from London courtesy of the Krays, which was totally untrue. But Eric was trading on the twins' name, just as he had in London, and was having a good life, thanks to them. I saw an opportunity, so a couple of nights later, I approached this Bill Heaney and asked him to lend me a couple of grand. I said, "We need it until our expenses come up. It's a way of asking for protection money without using the threat." We had no trouble. He said, "You want it now?" He put 2 grand in cash in a bag and slipped it into my lap. Not long afterwards, he called me into the foyer and introduced me to a very pretty woman he was obviously having an affair with. He pulled out a .22 pistol and asked, "What do you think of that, Tony?" I said, "What are you trying to do? Impress me, Bill." I took it off him, put it in my pocket and told Chris. It was Heaney's little test. He then realized we were into it 100%. It reached the stage when we were going there every night. And every night, we were at his throat for more money. £1,000 here, £1,500 there. Chris, Eric, Peter and I used to cut it up between us. Dominic Pye, the doorman, all dressed up in his gold braid uniform and top hat, used to salute us when we walked in. We had to straighten a few things out though, like the time the head waiter, Jimmy, handed me a bill. I said, "Don't embarrass us," and he never troubled us with the bill again. On a later occasion, Jimmy made a proposition. He said, "If you look after me, I'll tell you what's going on with the law if they start to make inquiries, or if I hear of anything like that coming up." It looked to us as though we were onto a good thing in Blackpool. We could get anything we wanted, and were having the time of our lives. We were getting 5-star treatment everywhere we went. We were also into 1 or 2 other clubs, a bank manager, and other leading citizens from the area. The fact that we were so-called underworld characters attracted a lot of business people and straight people who loved the image of it around them. They wanted to say they knew us. Bank managers, company executives, show business personalities, sportsmen. They all loved that mystique, that danger, and the strange prestige they thought it gave them to be seen associating with us. The bank manager, when we met him, was rotten drunk. He said, "Look, if you're thinking of investing money up here, come and see me. If I wanted a loan, who better than the bank manager?" We got about 4 grand out of him, and he wasn't going to get it back. For his part, he could come out and be entertained and sit at our table. No doubt he was a henpecked husband. But although we were spreading our wings in Blackpool, working our way into various different businesses, we still used the Embassy as our base. Heaney was making it worth our while. One day, I had to go down to London immediately. At a suggestion from Chris, Bill Heaney offered to lend me his black E-Type Jag. I told him I might as well have the logbook too. I said it jokingly, but at the same time, I didn't mean it as a joke. He went to the safe and gave me the logbook. Obviously, by doing that, he was giving me his car. I knew it was wrong what Eric was doing, using the twins' name around Blackpool. I also knew if Ronnie and Reggie found out, they would be furious about it. One day, the bank manager dropped something out when he commented that Eric Mason was the twins' right-hand man. It confirmed to me that things had gone too far. Mason loved to be the center of attention. In London, he'd had a flat with a woman dancer in Jermyn Street. The way he felt about her was neither here nor there. It was a relationship of convenience. He just liked the image of having a young girl around him. He only ever used to wear one suit, the serge one Reggie had given him when he came out of the Nick. One day, my brother found him putting black polish on the patches where it had gone shiny, and it was a blue suit. Then there was the time we went out to spend a couple of grand that Bill Heaney had given us at a nice men's store. Chris and I were looking at the 75-pound shirts, and Eric was at the sale counter where they were getting rid of 3 for £1. Yet, despite all this, he always looked presentable. Chris and I went to another club one evening at the invitation of a man called Mitzi Walsh, who had an involvement in it. He was from a family of brothers who were very big in Blackpool at the time, and who made us welcome there. We arrived there to find Eric holding court. He had all the dancers from the Blackpool Tower sitting round him, and he was ordering champagne as if it was going out of fashion. He had a £20,000 cheque with him, made out to himself, and he was waving it about, getting all the credit in the world. He had the bank manager with him too, anyone who was anyone in Blackpool. But he knew, and I knew, he hadn't got a tenner on him. He threw the cheque on the table. "Where can I cash £20,000 at 12 o'clock at night?" Mitzi asked me. "Can he meet the bill?" I didn't know what to say. I looked at him as much as to say, "Don't ask me." Chris, Peter and I enjoyed all the hospitality in the world at this club, like every other. But people were starting to become suspicious of Eric over his so-called connections with the twins. Yet, because there was an element of doubt, Mitzi couldn't go against Eric. He had to write the money off, and it did cause a bit of aggro. Meanwhile, Eric was becoming more and more ridiculous in his bid to grab the limelight. Take the night we were invited to go and watch Jerry and the Pacemakers at the Queen's Theatre. We got VIP seats right at the front. Eric made sure that he had the spotlight put on him, and he was introduced as Eric Mason, that well-known club owner from London. On another occasion, we went to a Tom Jones concert. When the singer reached the request spot, Eric shouted out, "Tom, what about my number?" as if he knew him. He'd never even met him. He then went over to Gordon Mills, Tom Jones' manager, and said, "What's up with Tom tonight? He didn't seem to recognize me." Mills looked at him vacantly and said, "What are you talking about?" There was yet more embarrassment, thanks to Eric, when he, Chris and I, accepted an invitation to the Grand Order of Water Rats charity ball at Pontin's holiday camp, just off the Golden Mile. We each had a ticket, but Eric brought along a girlfriend who hadn't. Most people wouldn't get through the doors without a ticket, but Chris decided just to walk straight in. We plonked ourselves down at the finest table in the room. A little geezer came over and said, "Excuse me, but you're sitting at our table." Eric retorted, "If you don't fuck off, you won't be fit to sit at a table." Without further ado, the bouncers came running over. They tried to be polite about it. "Look, boys, the management are prepared to make up another table for you." But Eric was insistent. He took the place cards which were sitting in front of us, crossed out the names, including Eric Morecambe and Sophie Tucker, and put ours on them. Chris and I had to force him to sit down and then move to our own table with us when it was ready. We decided it was time to keep out of Eric's way. It wasn't good to have him around us. He was a likable character, but he caused himself a lot of problems. He had £1 million, but he didn't have a penny. He was a poor millionaire. He liked the style, but he couldn't back it up with what he had. Eric tried to be friendly with everyone, which put him in a very difficult position. He was a worrier, never without something on his mind. He was continuing to crack the twins' name around all over the place, and it was getting back to them. It was common knowledge in London by now, and something really had to be done about it. That's all for this edition, my friends. I'd like to thank you all for listening to my story. I'll catch you again in the next one.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you there soon.
Leave a like and subscribe.